Thank you for joining us on Belief Busters podcast. We have created a new series where we discuss the beliefs people have about God, religion, spirituality, divinity, and intuition. This space is created for you to hear what folks think God is, how their perceptions may have changed, what works for them today, or what no longer serves them. Consider this a sacred conversation, affirming that there are multiple paths for people to have a connection to what they call God, or source, or allness, principle, love. It doesn't matter what we call God. God is. The beliefs that individuals share on this program does not necessarily reflect my personal beliefs, but I do believe that whatever the journey is, whatever the purpose of the journey to connect to the allness of the universe that the individual takes is sacred and worthy. And so I invite you to join in this conversation on Belief Busters. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Emily was born and raised in the Amish culture. She wondered why we lived differently. Was there more to life than being Amish? Was there true happiness somewhere? And so at the age of 17, she made the decision to leave the culture and leave everything she had ever known her entire life. Can you imagine doing that at 17? Well, Emily had a rough road ahead, but eventually overcame much hardship, got her college degree, has 2 beautiful boys, and left corporate America to become a life coach. Well, when we started talking, we got on like a house on fire. And as we were chit-chatting, we were trying to figure out, so how do we collaborate? You know, we realized that there was a soul connection, and then we discovered that our paths to spiritual awareness was vastly different, but really very similar. So we decided that on today's episode, we would talk about our beliefs around God, the indoctrination of religion versus divinity, and what it takes to awaken to the awareness that we are all divine humans. Welcome, Emily. Really glad you're here.
I know. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and just connecting with you again. I just love your energy.
Back at you. It's good. So we're going to dive into some like really juicy conversation around God, because so often we get indoctrinated into what we are told God is. We're told what we need to do to appease this God called religion. And then we don't really look at it again as adults. You know, we kind of just say, this is our understanding of God, and that's it. So today we're going to kind of break down some of this and look at it. So let's start from the beginning with you. What were some of your beliefs that you were told about God?
Yeah, so the Amish is a very religious culture, and the beliefs that I was told about God, is if you did A, B, and C, you needed to ask for forgiveness. But no, even though you ask for forgiveness, you're going to be held accountable for that one day, and you're going to answer for that. So it was a very fearing God. On the other hand, it was also, well, God is love. But more so the fearing side, we had all these rules, if you don't follow these rules, you're disobeying the church and you're disobeying God.
Right.
And the rules didn't really, for me, looking back, the rules didn't really link to what God has to say.
Almost like a parent type of relationship of someone that's always overseeing you, can like have superpowers that they could read your mind, they can look down and always see, what you're getting into, and that there's this huge judgment around that. So what was your feeling about this God?
Yeah, so growing up, I always felt like I was never going to be good enough, and I did not ever feel like super connected. It was more of like, I know he's there, and I know I should trust in him and have faith, but I was so scared. Like there was so much fear and I was so scared around it. And when I left to go leave the culture at the age of 17, so how the Amish works, once they know that you're kind of looking to leave the culture or the church, they bring in some of the church members to talk to you. And when those church members came in to talk to me, it was like, oh, if you leave the culture, you're disobeying your parents and you're disobeying God, therefore you're going straight to hell. And when I heard that, at first I was like, you know what, God, whatever, who cares? I'm blocking you all out and I'm going. I might as well go live my best life. I don't have no shot of going to heaven. That's kind of was my theory,
Yes.
and I didn't believe that staying in the culture was going to save me and get me to heaven. And I was so miserable because I couldn't see, on one hand we say God is love, on the other hand we say he's such a fearful person and we've got to do all these things, and we don't know if we're ever going to get to heaven or forever saved, and like all these things. There was just so much doubt and fear around it. So it was a very fearful perception. So I was like, at 17, I was like, yeah, whatever happens, happens. I'm probably going to go to hell and that's okay. Because all these people were telling me that, and they were saying, if you have children, your children will go to hell with you. And it was just a very, more of like a brainwash tactic to get me to stay.
Yes. Yeah. No, I get it. And you're talking about the Amish culture, and yet for me, being raised Catholic, I got to say I heard a lot of the similar things, so it's just this fire and brimstone, and if you don't do these rules, and honor your parents, then you're going to go straight to hell. And like you, I just got to the point where it was like, well, there's nothing I could do to really stay in alignment with this. So I hear you. So my next question is, what was your process to really assess your beliefs and then discern you needed to release and then create new ones?
That was a long road and a long process, and at times a very uncomfortable process. And it was something that did not happen overnight. And when I had left at 17, and I would just kind of like ditch God to the back seat, whatever, it is what it is, and just kind of went about my life. I was going to live my best life. And I had left and didn't go to any churches. And then I had decided I would join a non-denominational church, and ended up getting baptized to try to reconnect. And I felt like I was somewhat connected, but I always still felt like I wasn't good enough. I was never going to be good enough for God. And it took me years and multiple obstacles to finally get to the point of like, okay, this is not true. And what really changed a lot of things for me, I had gotten big into meditation. And I had done a 21-day meditation challenge where I started talking more about the universe and the love. Like, there was very love driven. And I started sitting back and taking a look of like, wow, like God is love. And one day it just hits me. I was sitting there and I started to cry because I realized that all these years I viewed God as a fearful, scary person that was just going to come down and punish me and, was never going to be good enough. But that's really not how it is. Like, God is love. And I knew that within my heart, and I finally had that connection. It was just that moment of like, amazing, like you can't even describe it. And the thing then I found, as I realized God was love, but I still had all these religious wiring, and I was like, how do I figure out what it is? And then I heard something really interesting of like, so you get to choose what your beliefs are. Any kind of belief you have, whether that's religious, career, family, money, whatever it is, we choose those beliefs. And I sit there and I was like, if I get to choose my beliefs, then I need to go back and figure out what I really believe. And it's okay. And for a moment, I felt guilty because, again, the guilt of like, I'm leaving everything I've always stood for. I was always like, go to church. I took my boys to church, and I, felt it was just something that it was needed. And I was more of like non-denominational religious, and, we need to do these to do this, but really it's not. So I kind of just told myself, if I take all the religion out of it, what do I believe? And I started slowly going through my thoughts and my beliefs. And then I was like, do I choose to hold on to this belief, Or is it something I was wired in the past that no longer serves me?
Right.
And I had to be really honest with myself is, does this belief serve me? So if I hear, a religious comment about, you need to follow this rule or you're not going to be connected with God, I'm like, no, that's just a belief. And now I can kind of separate the two, but it's still a work in progress, as we hear a lot of religious aspects and, it's coming from us from multiple different angles. It's almost like you have to pull yourself out of everything and just ask yourself, what is my truth? And also knowing that you're allowed to have your own truth and you don't have to stick to a religion, and you can be just a spiritual person and still be an amazing human being. I was so wired that if you weren't religious, you really weren't a great person. Like religion kind of made you. And I'm like, so now for me, religion is just a label, right?
Right.
So I get to choose to be like an amazing human being and be spiritual and not have to worry that I'm going to lose my connection with God, because as long as I'm connected with God, the whole universe, it's love. And that's how it is. And then the other thing that really helped me too was understanding if the beliefs are coming out of fear or if they're coming out of love. And that kind of helps you decide, it's fear versus love. And I use the love versus fear a lot in my life. Even when making decisions, I'll ask myself, am I making this decision based out of fear? Or is that out of love? Because love will kind of always bring you back to your heart center, and fear you'll know because there'll be a little bit of resistance around it. But yeah, it's definitely a process of just knowing that you're allowed to make that decision. And yes, I know it can be difficult because there may be friends, families that are not going to agree with your decisions, that you're going to go more of a spiritual path instead of being a religion. And I still feel like you can be very spiritual and still attend a church if you choose to do so. But it's just a lot of rewiring and understanding where the wiring came to start with. And if we still want to hang on to that, if it's still serving us.
Yeah, that's really powerful because, I'm a minister, right? And so you would think that I'm so steeped in dogma, but what I've really come to understand is that religion is man's way of explaining the unexplainable. You know, human nature is that we try to explain things and make sense of things, right? And so in the olden days, way back when, it was very patriarchal. Well, it's still patriarchal. Let's get real there. But it was very patriarchal. And so these patriarchs made up the rules and regs as they saw them and as they saw God. So it's their relationship, their consciousness of God that was their level of consciousness, their level of connection to God. They had to explain the earthquakes. They had to explain the floods, right? And so it was this outside deity that was causing all of this, and we needed to behave so that God could be happy with us. So coming from that understanding, it just allowed me to really breathe into spirituality, breathe into question. Oh, so this is my parents that taught me this. Oh, because their parents taught them this. Oh, and then I get the opportunity now to kind of go, I'm not going to be smited down. If I choose to have a spiritual path as opposed to a religious path. Wow, the freedom then, right, from that. And it really sounds like that was your process as well, to really come to terms of changing the definition of what a spiritual connection can be. And, for me, I also had to go through the process of being really angry with God, and having that like argument and how could you and why would you and all of this, to then really be able to allow myself to figure out that this was an erroneous concept, that this is not a God of my understanding. And then shifting that into, I love the love and fear, that drives me as well. So is it coming from love? Then I know that I'm in the divine frequency of love and God and truth. And if it's coming from fear, then I know that I'm more based on this realm and the systems of this realm, and that's not necessarily my truth. So it really helps in that discernment. So I love you bringing that up.
Yeah, it's just a powerful thing to use. And especially if you're like me, you doubt yourself a lot. Because I used to doubt myself, like I didn't trust my intuition as much.
Mm-hmm.
And when people explained intuition, they kind of lost me of like, just tap into that feeling. And I'm like, but I don't know what it feels like.
Yes.
And then the love versus the fear really broke that down. So if you're making a decision, or if you're getting ready to respond on social media, or you're having a conversation, if you always stay centered on the love side, you view things differently. Yeah, logically it tries to pull us back into the fear,
Right.
but it's the love just keeps you centered.
Absolutely. Point on. I love that. Ah. Okay. What do you believe about God today? What's your relationship with God? And do you consider it God? Do you consider it energy? Where are you with it?
So yes, it is still God for me today. And relationship wise, it's like having a best friend to walk beside with me every day of my life. And the connection is incredible. And for those that will hear those quotes of, miracles happen every day,
Mm-hmm.
we can sit here and say those quotes, but once you start experiencing them in your life, it just hits you even more. And I've experienced so much just with being connected. And God for me right today is like, he's like everything, all the love, God, it's like all just one big thing. And I'm very like just so grateful to be, to find that connection and to be able to speak to him like he's my best friend. And it doesn't, for me, when someone says, well, I was speaking to God, and I would be always like, whoa, like, let's not go there. We don't want to be speaking to God. This is kind of some scary stuff. But it's like he's not there I had to get out of the mindset of he's there to judge me and I couldn't say certain things.
Right.
And there's times like where I'll be like, God, you know what? I'm frustrated. I'm angry. And then there's times I have to really surrender. And then I'm like, I'm just going to surrender it all. And when you truly start having these conversations and understanding, he loves you no matter what. And I often think of it too, I'm a mom and I love my boys no matter what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how God is. God is like so full of love. But, before I was one of those that would be like, let's only say the good things to God because,
Right.
he might not really appreciate that you're kind of angry right now.
Right.
But when I'm angry and I'm frustrated and I'm like, look, I'm frustrated and I need some support. I need these things. He talks back, right? And then when we surrender, it's this beautiful thing of like, I've surrendered everything. And then it's just having a peaceful feeling and then sitting back and just watching him do the work. And because I'm a very much a doer, right? I like to do things. I like to do things on my own. I'm independent, but it's less about doing and more just about being and staying connected now.
So what do you think you get out of that connection? Why even bother to have a connection?
Oh man, I don't. So now that I have it, I never want to lose it because it's so powerful. Like it's my guidance, it's my support. It's no matter what I'm doing in life, like it's there for me. It's like my entire life, and I still get caught up to where I'll make a decision before I actually will ask. Hey, send me some kind of directions or guidance. Sometimes I'll just make a decision based on my logical mind and logical thinking, right? But I'm just trying to be more conscious of, that if this is a big decision, really just let's connect with God and ask him for the answers. And before I would be always like, well, he doesn't answer anyways. I'm just going to make my decision and move on. But he really does answer you if you take this time to ask and connect and you're still enough to actually listen. Listening has been huge for me because there'll be different times like I'll get different messages, and I know that it's coming from God. And I
Mhm.
know if I stay connected, so I get so much out of my life from staying connected. And honestly, I don't like to not to be connected. Every time I get disconnected and get what people call out of alignment, I can feel it. I'm miserable, I'm unhappy. But when I'm connected, I have the peace, I have the happiness, my faith grows and I just grow more as a person. So for me, like, it's everything. It's my whole entire life.
Very cool. Thank you. And I could see that, like, as you're talking, it just resonates, like you're just glowing. So that's just very cool to see. And I also want to say, like, my concept of God has shifted from um, a he figure, like the anthropomorphic male deity, and it's now more about energy and light and love, So for me, it's like a universal energy. And I like that, that we can feel the same, even though our concepts of the deity is quite different, you know,
Yes.
but the the connection and the feelings and the guidance and just knowing that when we are connected to something greater than ourselves, it really allows us to shift off this plane, for lack of a better term, into the true awareness of what we are, that we are divinity and human, and that we are here to have the human experiences for our soul's growth, for us to really ascend spiritually. That's what we're doing here. We're in school and we're learning all of this and experiencing all of this for our highest good. And so when we look at it from that perspective, then if we're here in school for our soul's growth, that means that everything that is occurring is for us. It's for our highest good. And so the universe, God, love, principle, whatever term we use, has to be for us and love us. And so that's just like this huge cracking open of like, what do you mean? There's like no rules, no hatred, no, hell, no, you know? And so now that just really allows us to access our true divine nature, which is love. And so when we come from that place, as you mentioned, and we're just, flowing from there, we create this amazing world. And first it starts with our little world, right? You know, and then we just can watch that just kind of expand
Mhm.
through everyone that we touch and connect. That's God. That's the universe. That's love. All right, I get off my soapbox. All right. So for those who are they don't have that kind of relationship yet with the divine. Do you have any suggestions to help people to come into relationship in a different way?
Yeah, I would say for me, like some of the most powerful things, by far the most powerful thing was meditation.
Mhm.
And, but I think at the start of everything, as you're looking to have a connection, open your perception. So open your mind up to, yeah, these thoughts may be scary and uncomfortable because I'm really going away from some of the things I've been taught, and I want to have a true connection, and know that you have all the answers already inside you. It's just tapping
Mhm.
into finding those answers.
Yep.
But I think with meditation, it allows you to connect and really just be still and take the time to listen. And when I say meditation, I don't expect you to meditate for hours upon hours. Literally start with 5 minutes a day. And if meditation makes you feel awkward, think of it as a breathing technique and start doing breath work, because it will
Say a
slow
little
down
bit
your.
more of that. Say a little bit more about what is that breath work thing?
So for those that are usually not because I was one of those, like, I'm a power lifter, so I don't meditate, and I was not going to meditate. And I was not, because just wasn't ready for it. And I thought only monks in this palace meditated on their pillows, and that's what meditation was. um, but how wrong was I, right? So I was like, meditation. So I actually started with guided meditations, and I was so frustrated because, like, the first couple of days I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get all these things out of meditations, but I dropped the expectation. And I really just focused on my breath work. And what that does when you focus on your breath work, it kind of puts you in a different state of mind. It's kind of in like a more of a conscious mind. And the other thing I found really powerful as I'm doing this breath work, you can just keep your thought on one thing, or you can just let it go, just like meditating. So if you're meditating and you have all these thoughts come, just be like, welcome to the party. Okay, I know I need to do the dishes. Okay, that's there. Just welcome. Let's continue on meditating. But not judging ourselves. So when we do the breath work, sometimes that feels a little bit better than calling it meditation. And we just sit and we just breathe, and just 5 minutes. And you'll soon see that you have a longing to do more, or you want to now start getting more connected into meditation, because you've allowed yourself time to slow down, and it slows you down to the point where you see that it's impacting your entire day just by doing this for 5 minutes.
Great, thanks. So that's a good place to start, focusing on the breath, realizing that there's something that is breathing us. Like, we don't have to think about how to breathe. Like, there's this automatic thing that happens. And so that focusing on that then just allows me to go, wow, there's something really powerful here,
Yes.
And so that's a wonderful way to start the process to connect to the divinity within.
Absolutely.
Cool. So anything else you want to say before I tell people how they can, or ask you to tell people how they can get in touch with you?
I would just say the biggest thing is, when you're looking for connection, don't overthink it. Know that you already have the power within you, and you're an amazing human being. You have the right to believe whatever you want, and you can be connected. If I can be connected, anyone can be connected.
Emily, thanks so much for being here. So what do you do, and how do you support people, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am a life coach that specializes on changing perception and a lot of just mindset work. And I hang out a lot on my Instagram stories. So my Instagram handle is Emily_powerlifting. And I also have a website. It's www.emilyadams.net, and all my social handles are there. And you can book a free call if you feel that this is something that resonates with you. And that's kind of how I support people, coaching them through different beliefs, different limiting beliefs. Usually it's someone that wants to transition out of a career, or that's struggling with money mindset, or family, or relationships.
Great. Thank you, Emily, for joining us. It was a really good and soulful discussion. Once again, thank you for listening to us here on Belief Busters podcast. If you are enjoying these conversations about challenging our belief systems and ways that we can go about transforming outdated beliefs, subscribe to us, or even give us a positive review on wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you'd like to have a conversation with Reverend Cherie, you can reach her at info@beliefbusterspodcast.org. To continue on this journey of evolution of consciousness, you can also choose to get my book, which is entitled Turning Your Why into Why Not. You can find it at Amazon or any other book sellers. This gives you practical tools to do the work of transformation on your own. I look forward to seeing you the next time on the flip side.